You are a voice to your community, nation, and world. This is the Global Call.
Hi, welcome to Global Call. I'm Evangeline. Today, we're going to hear a story from Emily. We're going to go to her dorm room and hear part of her journey. Her journey is a journey of restoration, of hope, of excitement for the future, of what God can do to change around your life and what He's done in her life. And her life, she talks about how she was really into partying, into drinking, into sleeping around with guys, and up until the point where she had an abortion, and that started to change her life. Also her parents' separation and divorce and what that was like to walk through. And you know, Emily's story, she's being very open and candid with you and I and telling us every detail of basically how it felt, what she walked through. And you know, it takes really so much for a person to get to a place where they can overcome the guilt and shame and even really the embarrassment from the situation. And you know, Emily even told me, she said, I recently gave this story, including her abortion that she had in high school, recently at a high school function, because I felt like God wanted me to share my story with people, and so that people could be set free. And for her, that was hard because there's shame attached to having an abortion. She felt shame in that she did that, and it embarrassed her. It brought shame upon her. But you know, she has realized that there's freedom in the cross, that not only to take away the sin, but also to take away the shame and the guilt that you feel. And so it's awesome what God's done in Emily's life, and that she's willing to share her story to set people free and know that they can have hope, that they can get over it and be completely restored. So let's watch Emily's story now.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am from Seattle, Washington. I love playing tennis, and I am so in love with Jesus.
Okay, so we are in Emily's dorm room at her university, and we are going to just discuss her life and welcome Emily to
Thank you.
Global Call.
Yeah, thank you.
So Emily, if you want to just tell some of your story of how you got to where you are today and some of the, you know, the things that you've experienced along the way.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a Christian family and going to a Christian school. I thought I knew who God was, and my family, we never really talked about issues that were going on within us. And once I hit junior high age, I just hit this rebellious stage in my life, and my parents were always fighting and going to Christian school. I was just rebelling against my teachers, skipping class. And my freshman year of high school, I started getting into partying and drinking and smoking and just being promiscuous and just not wanting anything to do with God or the Bible. We had weekly chapel and Bible class that was required, and I just couldn't stand it. I just wanted freedom to go and party, and just really, I got to the point where I only had fun if I was drinking. If I
Was there anything that that made you come to that point of not wanting God anymore, or did you just feel like you were losing out so much of life, like missing out on life?
I felt like I was missing out on life, just because I started having friends from a public high school, and they were always partying, and once I got involved in that, I was like, wow, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
And so that's how I kind of got dragged into it.
Yeah. So in 9th grade, you decided to go to public school.
During 9th grade, my parents got separated, and my dad always wanted to keep me in a private school just because of the environment. But my mom said, if you want, because I was living with her, if you want to go to public school, that's fine with me. So I took her up on that right away.
Yeah. So why did your dad not want you to go to public school? Just to protect you?
Yeah.
So he was really protective.
He was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything, he wasn't overprotective. He just gave me rules that every high school girl should have, like curfew.
Yeah. But things that you didn't have to have if you're with your mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It got to the point where if I didn't black out, it wasn't a good night for me. If I remembered what happened the night before, I would think the next morning I didn't get drunk enough.
Yeah.
And if I didn't hook up with any guy, it was like, oh, that night was a waste because I didn't have fun. 11th grade, I had a boyfriend who was 2 years older, and our relationship was based on sex. And we only hung out at night, only at parties. And I found out he was going to go to college down in California. So, of course, we're like, this relationship isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
And so we broke up. And about a month later, I realized I hadn't had my period. And I decided to take a pregnancy test. I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, I just want to be sure I'm not pregnant.
Yeah.
But I was. And so this is the fall of my junior year in high school.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. It never really hit me that I was actually pregnant. It was just something more I needed to deal with, brush under the rug, like just forget about. And so that was kind of my thought process in every decision.
Yeah. Throughout your life before this even.
Yeah. And so I told my ex-boyfriend, and he said he would be there for me, whatever I decided to do. And that conversation was actually the last time I talked to him till this day.
Wow.
So he wasn't ever there for me.
Yeah.
He said, well, whatever you decide to do, he's like, I'm gonna go to school. He went to school for basketball in California. And he's like, I have a career with basketball, and we're not even together right now. I figured he wouldn't be there for me, but I just wanted to let him know what was going on.
So then you decided to have the abortion. And then what happened to that point?
I made the decision. I set it all up in December, and
how many months pregnant were you then?
I was about a month and a half. Made the appointment for the first week in January, and I had told my mom about it, and she kind of just left it up to me also.
Oh, wow.
And this point, my parents were still going through a divorce, and so I thought if my dad found out about it, I wouldn't be able to live with my mom anymore, and that would mean no more freedom, no more drinking, no more partying. And that thought scared me because that was the only time I thought I was having fun.
Yeah.
And felt like myself. And I thought I would have to go back to all his rules that every girl should have.
Right. So you went in January. Did your mom go with you, or?
She did. And one of my girlfriends at the time was with me. And I just remember sitting in the waiting room, and just other couples in there and other women, and just this depressed look on their face. And because I wasn't ever living in reality, it just didn't seem like a big deal to me. And I just remember sitting in the corner looking at everyone like, it's gonna be over in like a few hours. Like, don't be sad, you'll be able to go.
Yeah. So you felt like everybody was just depressed and...
Yeah, and I was like, what? Like, it's no big deal.
Yeah. So when you
went in, it was only a few hours.
Mhm.
And then after that happened, did it feel, I mean, what was the process like?
On that day.
Yeah, my own curiosity.
Yeah. Actually, it was really sad, that just my thought process back then, because I remember planning it out, and I had arranged it to be on a Friday. So I thought later that night I would be able to go out, and one of my friends was having a big party I was going to go to and just help forget about it. And that was my thought process.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get in and out and just not think about it ever
So
again.
did that happen, or?
That did happen.
Really?
That did happen.
So it wasn't like you were in pain later on that night or anything?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that happened, and then afterwards, was there emotional repercussions, or?
There wasn't for some time, because it was still so suppressed, like
Yeah.
inside of me.
You held it all down.
Yeah, I was really good at holding things down. It started to get around the school, what had happened to me, and it got to the point where I didn't want to be around people anymore.
Yeah.
Just because they had all known what I had done, and they just treated me differently. And so I dropped out of school and started taking Running Start, which is classes at a community college.
Yeah.
So that means no interaction between people. It's just going to class.
How did it get around your school?
That I had told back in December my three closest friends, and
Who you thought were your closest friends?
right,
Yeah.
right, but they weren't good friends.
Yeah.
We were friends when we were drinking, when we were partying. We were friends,
Yeah.
and that was about it.
Yeah. So it had gone around the school, so you went to community college and you dual enrolled, and then at that point,
At that point was when I really stopped. I wasn't filling my life with alcohol anymore, so I found
your emotions weren't suppressed anymore.
Right, and
Yeah.
because for it was weird, because I remember thinking, why don't I want to go drink? Why don't I want to go party? And I just started thinking, what is the point of living right now? I am at rock bottom,
Yeah.
and just having suicidal thoughts and not wanting to go on anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Did any of it have to relate with having an abortion, that you felt that way?
It did. It had to do with the abortion. It had to do with I didn't even know how many men I had slept with. It had to do with drinking, and I would always drink and drive, and I was wondering why I wasn't dead.
Yeah.
And just because of everything I had put myself through, why wasn't I dead yet? And just all of those questions.
Did you feel like you deserved to die?
I did. And I was wondering why I hadn't, especially after I had taken the life of my child.
So then at that point, what happened when you started feeling suicidal and all of that? How did you get out of that stage?
I remember thinking everything I had turned to fill that void and fill that emptiness inside of me, and I had tried everything under the sun. And I remembered everything I had learned in my childhood about who God was and how He takes away all our pain, and He forgives us and He loves us no matter what we have done. And I started, just all of these verses started coming to my head that I'd memorized, that I hadn't even thought of in years. And I had to ask my mom where my old Bible was, because I hadn't looked at it in years.
Yeah.
And I opened it and turned to Psalms, which was the only thing I could understand, but it was just full of praises
Yeah.
and hope and restoration. And I started thinking, maybe there is hope for me and maybe there is a bigger purpose for my life, why I hadn't been killed. I had totaled my car and gotten in 2 other accidents on top of that.
Wow.
I had alcohol poisoning. Just there are plenty of opportunities for me to not be here right now.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, why am I still here? And just I just started feeling like there was hope.
Yeah.
Hope again.
Yeah. So, so then after that, you know, God started giving you hope again for your future and taking away some of the guilt and shame. Or how has been the process of that? Did you, at that point, did you ask God to come and take away your guilt, and or what happened?
I didn't really understand how God worked. I just just reading it just made me feel like there was purpose, and I wanted to actually get to know who He was, not just by hearing about Him, but having Him be the personal God that He is.
Yeah.
Not just some historic figure that I had thought He was.
You wanted to know Him.
Mm-hmm.
First. Now from that point to where you are today, what kind of has occurred in your life?
My senior year, so I started desiring to know who God was, and I went back to my Christian school, which was hard because people there still knew. They heard everything I had been doing in my other school.
Yeah.
And it was hard going back just because I was scared of what they would think of me, but everything I had learned there about God, I wanted to know more about Him.
Yeah.
So much. It didn't matter what other people thought about me. And I wasn't involved in a church, so
your school was sort of your source for that.
Right.
Yeah. It was the only place you remembered God being.
Yeah, so that was where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so going back to the school and learning about God, I had thought that had made me a Christian, and just that was relationship with Him, just being in community with other Christians.
Yeah.
And not until after I graduated, I actually really invited Him into my life. And I remember going to a church, and I had never been to any church other than a Catholic. I just grown up with religion and not relationship, but what the preacher was talking about, it just grabbed me. And at the end they asked if anyone doesn't have Jesus in your life, if He's not the Lord of every area of your life, He's not your Lord at all.
Yeah.
And I had realized that he wasn't Lord over my life. I had still found, I knew there was hope in Him.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any farther than that what that meant, what that felt like. And I went up and I had this girl prayed for me, and I just found myself going up there, and it was the first time she just asked me what I wanted prayer for.
Yeah.
And I just started telling her my life story, everything I'd been through. And I remember as I was speaking and telling her everything I did, I was like, and I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And it was like I was telling her all these things, but in my head I was like, I don't want to say this. What am I doing? But the more I was confessing everything I had done, the more freedom I was feeling, and so it just kept coming out, and I was just crying, and I just felt the presence of God on me for the first time in my life. And so after that point was when all of these emotions that I had suppressed, they started surfacing, and emotions from how I used to treat my parents, how I would treat my teachers, my younger sister, just all authority in my life, and emotions from having an abortion. And it was the first time where I actually felt so much pain and hurt and regret, and I I didn't know what to do with all of this because I had just grown up pressing everything down, and now it was all coming up. But there was so much freedom and so much peace with that. I wanted to get everything out. Every dark spot in me, I just wanted out. Because I realized that Jesus really does like wipe us clean and make us pure. And I had not lived a pure life, and I didn't think I ever would be pure. So my senior year is when I just started I didn't know where this desire came from to know God, but it made me want to reknit my relationship with my earthly father. And I started going over to his house more and just spending time with him. And the more time I spent with him, the more hurt I felt because of my past and how I never wanted to be around him, and the time that I missed out, the past 3 years that I had missed out on getting to know him. I just wanted to rebuild that. And it just got to this point where I just knew I needed to ask for his forgiveness for everything I had put him through, everything I had done to him. And he was so forgiving, and I wanted to tell him everything that I had done, everything I had been through. But I was still, a part of me was like I scared to tell him I had an abortion, just because I knew he would still love me and he would forgive me. But I didn't want him to feel my burden and feel the pain. But I finally I told him, and he was so loving, and I got so much closer to him through that experience, and just being open with what I had done, and just how God had forgiven me and wiped me clean from that.
So, and then your parents now?
Actually, so my parents, they're divorced. They're divorced right now, and they would not speak to each other at all until about 3 months ago now. And
you've been praying for him?
I have. Ever since that night, I went up to the altar and just started confessing to the girl who prayed for me. We just started praying together, and one of the things I remember praying for was for my mom and dad to at least be able to talk again, to be in the same room together. And I even prayed. I remember praying for them to get back together, and I had so much faith for it. And it was one of those prayers where I knew I had so much faith. There was no doubt in me, and I would share it with some of my other friends, and they're like, "Emily, your parents aren't ever gonna, they won't be able to talk again. You're crazy for thinking that, for praying that." I was like, I had faith for it. And 3 months ago, they started talking just out of the blue. God gave them both the desire to just to have reconciliation between them and restoration. And they went out for coffee, and they started going on dates and and just rebuilding their relationship. And actually they're planning on getting married now. Getting married again after being divorced for 5 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's just like just seeing fruit everywhere in my life.
The restoration.
The way like God intended it to be, and He wants it. And there's just so much peace within my family, and it's just completely a work of God.
That's awesome. What would you tell someone who maybe was going through a situation? Maybe there's people out there who have had abortions or had things that they have regret in their life about. What would you tell them?
I would say the biggest thing is to find someone who knows the Lord and talk to them. Just be open and or even just praying. I mean, that should be the number one thing, but for me, that I never really knew how to pray.
Yeah.
So it really helped when I went to church and someone helped me pray. And even now, like, just writing out just things that you've been through, and just looking at it and just giving it to God.
Yeah.
Just really, like, just opening up every area of your life.
Yeah.
Because the more we try to keep certain things suppressed, the more I felt in bondage, and I was just keeping myself in chains.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so if you're out there today and you relate to Emily's story, I know that all of us at some level have things that we've gone through or that we regret in our life. I know I have things that, lots of different things I've had to deal with, and the thing is that God, it doesn't matter what you've done, who you were in the past, but God he does have, just like he does for Emily, a purpose, a plan for your life. He has a future to give you a hope and a future. And he wants to wash all those things clean. And you might be thinking, oh, but this isn't as bad as what I've done. Well, there is someone who took the price, who paid the price so that you could have freedom from all of that. And so me and Emily just want to encourage you today to know that regardless if you believe in God, you don't, it doesn't matter. He's there waiting for you to speak to him, to ask him. Even ask him now to reveal himself to you, because he will.
So you just heard from Emily, and isn't that a wonderful story about how God has changed her life, how he took her through depression and through all of the hurts of the past, of having an abortion, of walking through just even the guilt and shame from her lifestyle, and how God redeemed all of that. And so I encourage you today just to begin to ask God to reveal himself to you, to show you the areas that you need to be healed in. God's waiting for you. He doesn't care what you did yesterday or what you did last year. He wants to restore you, set you free, give you a hope and a purpose. And so today I encourage you to ask God to reveal himself to you, to ask him to show you the love of God, just like Emily was shown, that undeserving love of God. Because, all of us, we're all unworthy, but Jesus sent his son so that we could have eternal life, and so that we could know him personally and feel the love of the Father. And so today I just want you to know how much God loves you, just like he loves Emily, just like he loves me. God loves you. And so today, I want to thank you for being with us on Global Call, and we'll see you next time.